She deleted our wedding video like it meant nothing, said it was just taking up space. But that file wasn't just a memory. It was the last time I saw real love in her eyes. I stood in front of our big screen TV, frozen, remote trembling, in my hand. On the surface, I looked calm. But inside, something had already snapped. Because Jasmine didn't just erase a video, she erased me. The man who spent 5 years building a life with her from the ground up, only to be replaced when it got too comfortable to be exciting. It wasn't an accident. I know Jasmine. She triple checks before deleting anything. What she didn't know was that I had backups, cloud, drive, offline, all labeled under project names she'd never care to open. Not because I didn't trust her, but because something deep down told me one day I might need proof that we were real. She was laughing on the screen a week ago, not with me, with Juan. Same couch, same dress she wore on our 2nd anniversary. I watched the frame-by-frame footage like a surgeon examining an infection. Quiet, controlled, precise. Juan's voice, her laughter, his hand on her thigh. My throat closed, my teeth clenched. But I didn't cry. Instead, I hit record. And just like that, a new file started saving, Jasmine Final MP4. I planned the premiere during our 3rd anniversary dinner. I'd told her I had a surprise, booked the same venue where we first danced under fairy lights. She showed up in red, said it was my favorite color. Ironic. That's exactly how I saw the world now, just red. The guests were seated. Cake was wheeled out early. She thought it was just romantic timing. She had no idea the projector was connected to my laptop. One press of the space bar, and every guest, family, friends, colleagues, watched Jasmine perform a different kind of intimacy. One that didn't include vows or forever. And when the video ended, I didn't say a word. I just stood up, looked her in the eyes, and said, "You deleted our story, so I gave you a new ending." Albert never thought love could feel like a quiet war zone. From the moment he met Jasmine, she had been a whirlwind. Vibrant, magnetic, a force impossible to ignore. Their first encounter was like something out of a movie. He spilled his coffee on her favorite book at a cafe, and instead of anger, her laughter had filled the air, breaking the ice. That day, he had felt the kind of spark that made a man believe in fate. Jasmine was the kind of woman who commanded attention wherever she went. With her sharp features and confident stride, she moved through life like a queen reigning over her kingdom. Albert admired her strength, her fierce independence, and the way she lit up a room. She was his muse, his partner, and for years he had thought she was his forever. They built their life together brick by brick. A modest apartment first, then a cozy home where walls held the echoes of laughter, arguments, whispered dreams, and promises made on sleepless nights. Their wedding was a celebration of love, a gathering of family and friends, the moment Albert thought sealed their unbreakable bond. The wedding video captured every smile, every tear, every vow, a tangible memory Albert cherished deeply. But beneath the surface, things were shifting. Jasmine had always been fiery, but lately that fire was consuming rather than warming. Arguments erupted over trivial things. Albert's late work nights, forgotten anniversaries, the way he listened more to her than to himself. The woman who once laughed with him now spoke in cold tones, her words sharp enough to leave bruises on his heart. Morgan was introduced shortly after their 2nd anniversary, Jasmine's college friend, or so Albert was told. At first, Morgan was just a presence, hovering in the background of their social gatherings, always smiling too brightly, too often glancing at Jasmine with something Albert couldn't quite read. The more time Morgan spent around them, the more Albert felt the invisible wedge growing between him and his wife. Then came Juan, a charismatic man from Jasmine's work circle, confident and smooth with a laugh that seemed to linger longer than necessary. Albert noticed the stolen glances, the sudden texts, the late-night meetings Jasmine claimed were just work stuff. He tried to trust, to believe that their marriage was strong enough to weather anything. But trust, he learned, can erode silently. Albert's days became a blur of work, doubt, and quiet despair. The man who once felt invincible now questioned every word, every gesture. Jasmine's laughter, once his favorite sound, became a haunting echo in his mind, especially when he suspected it wasn't for him anymore. He still remembered the morning he found the first sign, Jasmine's phone left unlocked on the kitchen counter. A message notification flashed briefly before she snatched it away. His heart sank as he glimpsed Juan's name. The casual ease, in her replies, the secret smiles exchanged through texts. That day, Albert's world tilted. Confrontation wasn't easy for him. He wasn't the kind to storm into rooms or demand explanations. Instead, he watched, collected fragments of evidence, hoping against hope that he was wrong. But every moment only painted a clearer picture of betrayal. Their conversations turned into battles. Jasmine grew defensive, accusing him of paranoia. She said he was imagining things, twisting reality. Albert felt isolated, torn between love and the sting of truth. Morgan's role became clearer, not just a friend, but an accomplice. Albert discovered they had been conspiring, masking the affair behind a veil of friendship and secrecy. The realization crushed him, but also ignited a fire he hadn't known he possessed. Despite the heartbreak, Albert refused to be the victim in someone else's story. He decided to reclaim control, not with anger, but with undeniable truth. The wedding video was gone, deleted by Jasmine in a cold act of erasure. But Albert had already prepared for this moment. His backups held the proof of every smile, every promise, every happy beginning they once shared. More importantly, he had recorded everything else, the affair, the lies, the heartbreak, to reveal the true story to the world. His decision wasn't born from cruelty, but from a desperate need for closure, justice, and a way to heal. Albert's story was no longer just about love lost. It was about a man who found strength in pain, clarity in chaos, and dignity in the face of betrayal. Jasmine's actions pushed him to the edge, but they also forced him to rise. This wasn't the end of their tale. It was the moment everything changed, the start of a reckoning that neither could ignore. Albert's heart sank the moment he discovered the wedding video was gone. It had been the only thing left of their fragile past, a precious memory Jasmine had deliberately erased. The realization struck him like a cold wave. His wife had deleted it, not by accident, but with intent. Questions gnawed at his mind as he stared at the empty folder on their shared cloud account. Every frame, every smile, every promise they had once made was gone, wiped away without a trace. He sat motionless, staring at the blank screen. The silence in their modern apartment felt suffocating. A faint sound broke through, his phone vibrating on the table. A message. From Jasmine. Forget the past. It doesn't matter anymore. The words were chilling. Albert's fingers trembled as he typed back, "Why?" There was no immediate reply. He remembered how things had started to unravel, the late nights she spent out, the coldness in her eyes, the secretive texts that never reached him. Suspicion had crept in slowly, like a shadow that lengthens at dusk. Albert had tried to convince himself it was all his imagination, that Jasmine was just stressed with work. But deep down, he feared the truth. The next morning, Albert found himself sitting alone in the living room, his gaze fixed on the blank television screen. Then his phone buzzed again. This time it was a video message. He hesitated before opening it. What he saw shattered his world. Jasmine was laughing, her hand intertwined with another man's. Juan, the man he had met only once, a charming stranger who had always seemed too carefree, too reckless to be trusted. The video captured them close, whispering words Albert wasn't meant to hear. His chest tightened, breath caught in his throat. The video ended abruptly, leaving a silence louder than any scream. He couldn't believe it. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted, was betraying him right in front of his eyes. But there was more. Someone had edited the video onto the same screen as their wedding footage. The image of their vows flickered beside the affair, a cruel juxtaposition mocking everything Albert had hoped for. Anger flared, but it was tangled with confusion. Why delete the wedding video? Why hide her infidelity so blatantly? Was this some twisted way of confessing? Or a final insult? Albert's mind raced, trying to piece together the broken fragments of their marriage. He recalled the last few months, the arguments over trivial things, Jasmine's sudden coldness, her distant smiles. She had been wearing a mask, hiding something beneath. He thought of Morgan, his longtime friend, the one who had always warned him to watch out for Jasmine's impulses. Morgan had sensed Jasmine's instability long before he did, cautioning him quietly but firmly. Albert never wanted to believe the worst. Now the truth was undeniable. Albert picked up his phone and called Morgan. The moment Morgan's calm voice answered, Albert barely held back his fury. "She deleted our wedding video, and she's been with Juan." Morgan's tone shifted serious and protective. "Albert, you need to be careful. This isn't just a betrayal. There's more beneath the surface. Jasmine's hiding something, and Juan isn't innocent either." Albert swallowed the lump in his throat. "What do you mean?" Morgan hesitated before continuing. "I've seen Juan manipulate people before. Jasmine is caught in something bigger than you realize. You need proof before you confront her." Albert nodded, even though Morgan couldn't see him. "I'm going to find out the truth. No more secrets." Days passed in a blur. Albert's calm exterior masked a storm of emotions inside. He spent hours scouring their devices, searching for clues, piecing together Jasmine's double life. Every discovery tore at him more deeply. There were deleted messages, hidden accounts, and whispered calls he wasn't meant to overhear. Then, one evening, he received a tip from an anonymous source, a bar named the Velvet Room, where Jasmine and Juan had been seen together frequently. Albert's pulse quickened. This was his chance to confront reality head-on. He arrived at the bar late, the neon lights flickering in the rain. Inside, Jasmine sat with Juan, their laughter carrying a cruel sharpness. Albert's presence went unnoticed until he cleared his throat. Jasmine's face drained of color. Juan's smug grin faltered. Albert stood firm, voice steady but filled with quiet fury. "Why? Why erase our memories and replace them with lies?" Jasmine's eyes flickered with guilt, but quickly hardened. "Because the past is dead. Because—" "I'm done pretending," Juan leaned in, his voice mocking. "She made her choice." Albert felt the room close in on him, but he refused to break. "This isn't over." That night marked the beginning of a battle, between love and betrayal, truth and deception. Albert knew the path ahead would be painful, but he was determined to reclaim his story. For himself. For the memory Jasmine tried to erase. Albert sat alone in the dim glow of the living room, the flickering light of the television casting shadows across his sharp, clean-shaven face. Storm-gray eyes stared blankly ahead, but inside, a tempest raged. The weight of Jasmine's betrayal crushed him more heavily than he ever anticipated. The image of the deleted wedding video haunted him, not merely as a lost memory, but as a symbol of all that had been erased between them. What they once shared felt like an illusion, carefully constructed and now shattered. His heart wrestled with disbelief and searing pain. How had the woman he loved so deeply, the woman whose laughter once filled their home, turned into someone so distant, so disconnected? Albert's mind spun endlessly, grappling with questions that had no answers. Had their love ever been real? Was it merely a transaction disguised in tenderness? The live stream, the hidden betrayal. Every moment seared itself into his consciousness, fueling a turmoil he could neither suppress nor fully express. Even the familiar walls of their home seemed alien, tainted by the ghosts of secrets and lies. Each creak of the floorboards echoed the tension between what was and what could never be again. Albert's usual calm composure fractured under the weight of his emotions. There was anger, sharp and consuming, at the deceit that had been woven so carefully around him. Yet beneath it all lay a deep well of sorrow, a mourning for the trust lost and the future they would never share. Sleep eluded him that night. Memories of Jasmine's distant gaze and Juan's smug smile replayed relentlessly, like a merciless loop he could not break. He found himself questioning every moment, every touch, every whispered promise. Had they all been lies? The uncertainty gnawed at him, pulling him deeper into despair. His soul felt tethered to an invisible thread, fraying with each passing second. In the silence, Albert's thoughts drifted to Morgan. Her gentle green eyes, full of empathy and quiet strength, had tried to prepare him for this pain. Yet nothing could truly ready a man for the collapse of his world. Morgan's words echoed softly in his mind, that Jasmine's actions were born of complex fears and hidden battles. But understanding brought little comfort. The wounds were raw, bleeding. Beneath his skin, Albert clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening. The temptation to lash out, to demand answers, to confront Juan, surged fiercely. But he held back, knowing that rage alone would not mend the fractures in his heart. Instead, he sought solace. In solitude, a place where he could confront his feelings without pretense. As dawn approached, the room grew colder, mirroring the chill that had settled within him. Albert's breath came slow and uneven as he wrestled with the dread of what lay ahead. The path to healing was uncertain, fraught with pain and unresolved questions. Yet somewhere in the depths of his heart, a fragile hope flickered. That truth, no matter how devastating, would ultimately set him free. Albert had barely begun to process the swirling storm within when fate dealt its cruelest hand yet. One evening, as the city lights shimmered faintly through the curtains, his phone buzzed with an unexpected message. The sender was anonymous, but the content pierced his chest with icy precision. A series of screenshots, private conversations, between Jasmine and Juan, discussing plans that hinted at a betrayal far more sinister than mere infidelity. Albert's breath caught as he scrolled through the messages. Jasmine and Juan weren't just careless lovers. They had been plotting behind his back, weaving lies that extended beyond the bedroom. There were talks of business deals, hidden alliances, and whispered schemes to isolate Albert from his closest allies. The very foundation of his life was crumbling beneath him. His mind reeled. The betrayal had grown roots deeper than he imagined, stretching into the core of his existence. Jasmine was no longer just a woman who had broken his heart. She had become a force actively undermining everything he had built. The trust that once tethered them had been replaced by deception that threatened to engulf him completely. Unable to bear the weight of these revelations alone, Albert reached out to Morgan. Her calm and steady presence was a balm amid the chaos. When she saw the messages, her eyes widened, but she said nothing. Instead, she offered a silent nod, a shared understanding of the treacherous path ahead. That night, Albert confronted Jasmine. The confrontation was cold, charged with years of unspoken grievances now boiling to the surface. He showed her the evidence, watching as the confident facade she wore cracked ever so slightly. Her denial was immediate, but hollow. She claimed innocence, spoke of misunderstandings and misinterpretations, but Albert's storm-gray eyes betrayed no forgiveness. Jasmine's wavering composure revealed the depth of the chasm growing between them. This was no longer a mere affair. It was a fracture so vast that even the strongest efforts at reconciliation seemed futile. Albert realized that to save himself, he would have to sever ties completely, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, the tension intensified. Juan, sensing Albert's rising suspicion, became brazen, flaunting his closeness to Jasmine in public, mocking Albert's silent anguish. The city whispered of their scandal, gossip weaving through social circles like wildfire. Albert's world shrank as allies distanced themselves, swayed by Juan's charm and Jasmine's manipulations. Alone and betrayed, Albert faced a daunting truth. The war for his heart was now a battle for his very identity. Albert stood before the grand hall where Jasmine had arranged a gathering, a so-called celebration that masked the true purpose of their meeting. The room was adorned with glittering chandeliers and floral arrangements, but Albert's eyes saw only the cold deception beneath the surface. His storm-gray gaze swept over the crowd, noting familiar faces now turned into silent spectators of his unraveling world. Jasmine approached him, her delicate features a mask of feigned warmth, eyes glistening with tears she did not feel. "Albert," she began softly, "please, let's talk. We can fix this." But Albert's voice was steady, devoid of the affection she sought. Fix? After everything? After the lies? The betrayal? The room hushed as he revealed the truth. How he had discovered her secret meetings with Juan, the lies stitched between their words, the deleted wedding video that symbolized a love betrayed. His words cut through the air, slicing the veneer of their charade. Jasmine faltered, the web of lies unraveling before the eyes of those gathered. Juan stepped forward, his smug smile fading into a grimace. "You think you're the victim here, Albert? You were never what she wanted." The confrontation spiraled into chaos as accusations flew and secrets spilled. Albert's heart ached with every revelation, yet a fierce clarity emerged from the wreckage. He was no longer the man chained by deceit. The confrontation was not just an end, but a beginning, a reclaiming of his dignity and self. As Jasmine's defenses crumbled, Albert's resolve solidified. He realized that forgiveness was a path he might never walk, but liberation awaited on the other side of truth. The crowd's murmurs faded into silence as Albert turned away, the weight of betrayal lifting with each step. Albert stepped out of the shadowed room into the crisp morning air, the weight of the past months pressing on his shoulders, but his spirit finally unburdened. The city around him moved with indifferent rhythm, oblivious to the personal wars waged within. For years, betrayal and heartbreak had carved deep wounds in his soul, yet today, a fierce clarity guided his steps. The days following the confrontation with Jasmine had been a whirlwind of decisions. He severed ties with Juan, exposing his manipulations to their shared social circles. The truth spread like wildfire, shattering Juan's carefully crafted facade of charm and leaving him isolated. Albert's once quiet and reserved demeanor was replaced by a determined force, unafraid to reclaim what was rightfully his. Jasmine, left grappling with the consequences of her choices, faded into the background. Her attempts at reconciliation became desperate whispers against the roaring tide of Albert's resolve. He refused to be a pawn in her game any longer. With Morgan's unwavering support, Albert rebuilt his life on foundations of self-respect and newfound strength.
He threw himself into his work, his passions, and the pursuit of a future untainted by past betrayals. The scars remained, but they no longer defined him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Albert received an unexpected package.
Inside was a bouquet of white lilies, symbols of renewal, and a note in Jasmine's handwriting. "I'm sorry for everything," he smiled, a quiet acceptance washing over him. Forgiveness was a gift he reserved for himself, not for those who shattered his trust. The chapter with Jasmine was closed. In the final act of his revenge, Albert unveiled a live stream of his own, one that showcased his strength, dignity, and rise from the ashes. The broadcast was a message to those who doubted him, to those who sought to break him. He was unbreakable. As the viewers watched, inspired and moved, Albert stood tall, a man transformed. The betrayal that once threatened to consume him had become the catalyst for his ultimate triumph.